In today's episode, I'm talking about a few management tools you can use to make dealing with the many requirements and deadlines you face. It's going to be a great discussion. Welcome to the Finance Leader Podcast, where leadership is bigger than the numbers. I am your host, Stephen McLean. This is episode number 7 of the podcast. In this discussion, I'm going to offer a few tools that will help you manage your tasks and the team as a whole a little better. We're going to talk about prioritizing, improving communication, back briefing, backwards planning, and delegation. We are both a leader and a manager each day. The leader creates and shares a vision that the team can carry out. Your management side combines the art and science of getting things done so you can achieve that vision. Management guru Peter Drucker said, "Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things." As leaders, we must approach the tasks that we have and the many things that we need to get done as a teacher, coach, and mentor. Definitely not approach showing our team how to do things in a condescending way, but as a person who wants to see others grow. The way you talk to others is important because it affects them. It affects their performance, it affects their mindset, it affects how they see their role on the team and how they see their future with the organization. We're going to talk about a few things that I've experienced in my career, and a lot of these techniques that we're going to discuss today comes from my long career in the Army. And I want to share them with you because if you adapt them and use them in the management and leadership of your team, then it's going to be a little easier for you in order to get through all those tight deadlines that we talk about and all those requirements that come at you. You're going to be able to manage those tasks a little bit easier. First thing I want to talk about is time management. And in the Army, we used to use a technique called the 1/3, 2/3 rule. And that is when we get a new task, a new requirement, or we're planning for something like a project, that we determine what the total amount of time is for the project, and then we divide it up. We're going to take 1/3 of the time for ourselves, and then we're going to give back 2/3 of the time to our team, so they get a majority of the time to plan and work out all the things that they need to do once we know what the project or the task is. It's very important. It helps to make sure that as the leader, we don't take all of the time ourselves, and that we do what we need to do quickly up front and then get what needs to be done out to the team, and then they get a majority of the time. We give them back to them, so it makes it a lot easier. I recommend this with any kind of complex task, complex project that gets handed to you. I just think it's a lot easier to manage a complex problem and a complex issue. And it made it a lot easier throughout my career in the Army, that concept of just take a little bit of time for yourself and push back all the rest of that time to your team, and you set them up for success. The next thing we're going to talk about is prioritizing. Prioritizing is about sequencing all those tasks and requirements you have in importance, from the most important to the least important. If you do this successfully, then you're going to be able to manage your time a lot better, manage the time of your team a lot better. You're going to be able to take those and identify those important tasks up front and concentrate most of your effort to accomplishing those tasks. You then identify the tasks that just kind of come at you that aren't as important, and you push those down on the priority. And the key to all this is that you communicate that priority on the team. Now, your team members have tasks that they're doing every week. There's reports that need to be done, or every month. Reports and emails that need to be sent out, analysis that needs to be done. Those are all very important. Those need to be done. But we're also inundated with new requirements, new tasks, new requests for information from the executive team or a director or a vice president, somebody out there that needs something, some kind of piece of information that helps them do their job. Sometimes those requests, even though it's coming in from a director or a VP, it may not be a top priority. And that's why you need to continually be assessing what's the most important, and then you prioritize it within the team. And don't be afraid to push back on something that's not quite as important. And your team members need to continually be reporting in new requirements, new things that they're being asked to do, so that you can sequence it properly. Now, that's not wrong to make sure that they're telling you the things that people are asking you to do, because as the manager of that team, You get to set the priority of the tasks that come in. You may have knowledge that they don't have because you sat in a meeting and you know what's important and what's coming down. And you need to have your team members working on these sets of tasks. If another leader or another person from around the company asks them to do something, and that will then set back a top priority task. So again, communicate to everyone on the team what's the most important task. They need to be continually communicating back to you. If anybody asks them to do anything, then you can set a new priority and communicate with that person who asked and say, no, we can't do that right now. Maybe we can do that next week or the week after. But we've added it to the list and we'll continually assess the priority. Your weekly team meeting is a great place to talk about priorities. I would say it's probably the most important thing you talk about. Your weekly meeting is where you can coordinate all the resources and requirements and then crosstalk on the team what needs to be done. And you just kind of list it out, put the items up on the screen, and we need to talk through all these things. And then you solicit input from your team members, and then you can make a decision whether an item needs to move up or down in the priority. Highly recommend this. Of all the things we're going to talk about in this episode, prioritizing, if you can grasp this concept and put it in action and then communicate with everybody on your team and communicate with your boss, and if you just set that priority up every day, every week, you can start to get a lot more synergy and movement on the team in the right direction. As leader, you've already shared your vision and your purpose for the team. You've taken the company's mission and saying, hey, we're going to do this. And then in addition to that, we're prioritizing our actions so that we achieve that vision, that mission, that purpose that you've talked about. If you're going to work on anything, prioritizing and communicating and making sure everyone knows what the priority is. Everything that comes in new, set that against what we have on our priority list, and we make a new priority list, and we continue to work it, and we continually assess it. We communicate with our boss, we communicate with our team members, and we make it better. Next thing I want to talk about is improving communication. Communication needs to continually be worked by every manager, every leader at every level in our organizations. I recommend that you push down information as quickly as possible to everyone as much as you can, because I believe in as much transparency as possible. Also, when you push information out, that means you're giving your team members enough advance warning on something that's coming or something that's going to happen so they can start doing their thinking and their planning. This goes back to the first thing that I talked about in that 1/3, 2/3 rule. Push out the information as quickly as possible, down as low as possible. And in the Army, we used to call these warning orders. As soon as we got a new mission or a new task, we start to generate that first warning order so that our subordinate units can start working on the most important things now, while the rest of the order comes down to us in a few hours. So we can start doing our planning so that everyone is doing parallel planning. And then when it comes time to do the mission, that we have saved a lot of time and a lot of effort by doing this parallel planning. In addition to that, when it comes to a complex task or a project, I really would like you guys to start describing what you want to see. What's the end state of the task that you have? What does the task look like to you? Communicate what you want this thing to look like. You kind of give a vision to your team members, and that helps them clarify the things that they need to do and what this task will look like. And it just continually serves to give a very clear idea of the standard that you want. What do you want this look like at the end? When the product that they give you back, do you want to see it this way? Do you want to see it in a graph form? Do you want to see it in a written form? Be very clear and concise in the end state of the task that you want. Give as much information as possible, and it takes time and it takes practice to do that. The next tool that I want to share with you that helps with the communication process is back briefing. After you assign a task, then you have that person tell the task back to you. And I say that this ensures that they have comprehended the task, and it's always leads to good questions afterwards. Once you have given that task, they have stated that task back to you, and that gives you an opportunity to assess that they really grasp what's required of them, what's the standard, what needs to happen, what needs to be done. And then it creates a a discussion, clarity questions, and a little bit more information maybe to get the task done to the standard that you want it done. And I think this is always a good way to have a discussion around something that's required. And I just recommend that you just take that time, take that effort to clarify what needs to be done. It'll just help you, it'll help the person. And again, that's why I recommend using this simple tool. It's called the back briefing. You issue out a task and then they state it right back to you, and it just ensures good communication, good clarity of what is required. The next item I want to talk about is backwards planning. That's when you get a task or project that's complex in nature. It's a long-term task. It might be more than a month, 2 or 3 months maybe. And that's when you start to think about what the project will look like, what it's going to deliver, and what date. And you start working from that end state, from that finalization date, and you start working towards the present. And you start laying out all these things, because most people start out, okay, I have a task that's going to take 90 days, and I just start thinking about maybe the things that I have to do in the next week or two, and just believe that it's easier to work backwards. And you start with what the project or what the end state looks like, and you start working towards the present, and you start fitting in all those things that you need to do. And it just gives you a lot more clarity, and it shows you how much time really what the project is going to take. So the next time you have a long-term project, start with the end in mind and start working towards the present. And I believe that's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of visualize and see how that project kind of play itself out. It'll be a lot easier. It'll fit in a lot more, and I think you're going to have a lot more clarity. The last thing we're going to talk about as far as management tools, and that's probably one of the hardest that managers have to deal with when they're leading a team, and that's delegating. Soon you're going to realize that if you want to be successful as a leader, that you can't do it all alone. You're gonna need other people to help you. You can't be successful and try to get it all done by yourself. You're gonna need help from every member of your team. You're gonna need help from a lot of people in order to get all of your tasks done, the projects done, and achieve excellence at the same time. So whatever level you are at, in order to go to the next level, in order to achieve excellence, you're going to have to bring on more people into a task, and you're going to have to learn to delegate. You're going to have to learn to give out tasks to other people to help get everything done. And with delegating, I want to take it one more level. I want you to think about one more thing, and that is one of the things that I believe in as leaders, again, that we need to continually be doing, and that's growing our people. So we're going to delegate, but we're not just going to delegate those tasks that we don't want to do. We're going to start delegating some tasks that require a lot of thinking and a lot of attention to detail. Some of the most important tasks we're going to give to members of our team so that they grow. I don't want to just see the simple tasks we put out there. I don't want you to hold on to all of these important tasks, because then you don't have opportunities for your team members to grow. Because if you're not doing that, then you're not teaching and growing your team members. You're just holding on all of those important things, all those things that'll get you recognition, and you're not going to that extra step and that critical leader task of growth and developing your team. So think about that. It's hard for managers to delegate. I see it all the time, especially for young managers. They think they can get it all done, or they're afraid to issue out a task, and that's not what we're about. We need everybody on the team working in the same direction. We're prioritizing our tasks. We're issuing out tasks because we know we can't do it alone. So again, just continue to work towards, in your own mind, if I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to have our team be successful, I need everybody on board, and we need to start getting some things out around the team. And we can even delegate out parts of a complex task. And that's what I recommend, is that when we have something that requires a long-term focus, that we can delegate out pieces of it, and then we continue to come back and talk about it, and we have milestones, and we issue out dates that things need to be done, and we talk about it, and then we come together and we finish the product, and then we are ready to present it to whoever assigned it to us. Next, we're going to return to Michael, who we talked about in episode number 6. He was our manager who was dealing with complacency. As tasks come in, Michael does very well at prioritizing them because he listens to the importance of the tasks. He could improve at pushing out information quicker and finding out what else his team may have been asked to do. Any task a team member of yours receives should be reported to you so you can fit it into the bigger picture and priority. Again, Michael was fighting with issues of complacency. He was waiting for things to come in, but once they're coming in, he's able to then prioritize the tasks into the bigger picture. One more thing that he, of course, needs to work on is getting the information out quicker, and then also asking what his team members are being asked to do so that he can go ahead and fit it into the bigger picture. A recommended easy win that I want you to consider doing today is going back to that priority list and establishing how tasks come in and tasks you're currently working on. I want you to keep a running list, some way to manage those tasks so that it's easier for you and the team to accomplish everything that you need to do that fits into the bigger picture, that fits into the strategy of the organization. And once you start prioritizing, it's going to make it a lot easier to achieve that strategy. So write out a list, find some way to manage that list, add that process to your weekly meeting, and then every week we rework the list and we communicate the priorities every week and every day if you need to, especially if it's rapidly changing. Make sure that your team members are telling you if somebody's asking them to do something, because you have the responsibility to establish the priorities on your team. That's not micromanagement. You are managing resources. You are managing people who have limited time in their day, and we want to maximize that time to do the right things at the right time. So establish this today, get this process rolling, and your life is going to be a little bit easier. One more thing that I want to ensure that you guys are doing: when you're given a task, when somebody's asking you to do something, make sure you get a due date. Due dates are critical because that fits in a priority. If something is due in a week, then we can see how it fits in and makes it a lot easier to manage expectations. In this episode, we talked about a few management techniques that you can use to lead and manage your team better. We talked about some time management and prioritizing. We talked about improving communication and back briefing, backwards planning, and also delegating. You can find this episode and past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other places that you can download podcast episodes. You can download the show notes at stephenmclean.com. Next episode, we're going to talk about a few leader attributes or values that leaders should have. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please join our community on Facebook, the Finance Leader Podcast Facebook group. This will be our community to grow within the finance and accounting profession. Until next time, you can check out more resources at stephenmclean.com and sign up for my updates so you don't miss an episode of the show. And now, go lead your team and see you next time. Thank you.